In this video, I'm going to be talking about something called toxic positivity and why it is harmful in the personal development space. So in personal development and mindset work, one main flavor and recurring theme is that everyone is trying to feel better. We want to feel joyous, we want to feel happy, we want to laugh, we want to feel abundant, we want to feel grateful. And so when our goal is that, we start to identify the other emotions that are just part of the human experience, like frustration, boredom, anger, as bad. And we may have learned something like, oh, it's a law of attraction and you need to think good thoughts and you need to feel good feelings because that's what you're going to attract more of. All which is true, but there are a couple nuances to this that turn into basically trying to be overly positive, to push down any negative thoughts, to avoid negative feelings, and it is actually more harmful than it is good. So let's break down what toxic positivity is and why it happens. So to put it super simply, toxic positivity is basically dismissing the thoughts and feelings that we are having that we consider negative. So it could sound like, I shouldn't be thinking this way, or I shouldn't be feeling that. And it can also show up in the way that we talk to other people. And it might sound like, oh, there's no reason to be sad. It's okay. Or I felt that way once, but I'm fine. Or they aren't worth your tears. Or man up. Or don't worry about it. So all of these words to ourselves and to others are basically dismissing the reality of what's actually going on. Because the truth is, we are actually feeling upset. I'm actually feeling frustrated. So by dismissing it and saying, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it, you don't need to worry about it, it's not actually that helpful when I'm having an experience in my body that is worried about it. What we're then saying is reality is wrong. The thoughts I'm having are wrong. The feelings I'm having are wrong. And this thing that I'm feeling in my body is wrong. And when we tell ourselves that it's wrong, it usually comes with another emotion of guilt and shame. So when we're thinking, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or I shouldn't think that, that's bad, now we are also guilting and shaming ourselves for the reality of the thoughts and feelings that are happening in our body. See how contradicting that is? So what feels like just trying to cheer ourselves up is actually pushing down and denying an experience that's happening inside our body. So the chemical and hormone systems in our body create floods of emotion on purpose. It is not an accident when that happens. Your body can't be like, oops, accidentally let some anger chemicals go. It doesn't work like that. So our body is always producing different fluctuations of chemicals, which we experience as emotions. So we experience joy and we experience despair and we experience boredom and we experience frustration and we experience excitement. And when you think about those emotions, even if you just pick one of them, and you can kind of immediately feel what that feels like in your body. Maybe it feels heavy, maybe it feels exciting, whatever it is, you know that there is a body sensation, right? So our body is creating a felt sense and a felt emotion to show us how we are feeling about a current situation. So what we need to understand and accept is that it's okay if what we're feeling feels undesirable. It's not about loving feeling these specific emotions. And maybe we can even logically reason with our mind that an emotion like jealousy, for example, is unwarranted. But if we're trying to decide with our thoughts that the thought that we're having is bad, it doesn't help us process the reality that the actual feeling is jealousy, and it doesn't help us create a long-lasting pathway of acceptance to help us not feel that way again. So what we're trying to do, most likely in personal development work and mindset work, is not feel a specific emotion often. So it's probably a desire to feel less anxiety, less overwhelm, less stress, less jealousy, less anger, whatever it is. But by continuing to just shun it and say, no, that's bad, it will inevitably persist. So one of my coaches, Andrew, has a saying that maybe he picked up from someone else, but what he says basically is what we resist persists. And that is always going to happen in this case. If we deny accepting these negative feelings, they're going to continue to be there. But if we can accept them, work with them, then we can create a pathway in our own neuro pathway system in our brain that allows these emotions to pass through us quite effortlessly. We're accepting them as part of life and knowing that we cannot experience the positive, quote, positive emotions if we don't also experience the negative ones. Because if you never experienced anger, how would you know what joy feels like, right? So the alternative to overriding these thoughts is to feel it and to release it. So whatever it is, the solution is to sit with it, to be able to let it go and make space for lighter energy to come in. And this might be a concept or a practice that you've never thought of before and you've never tried before, because we are not taught this as a way to process our emotions. But remember, our body is creating a chemical cocktail to tell us that we are feeling a specific emotion, and a chemical cocktail is energy, and the energy wants to move. So what we need to do is give it space to move, let the anger, the frustration, the jealousy, the boredom, whatever it is, leave, make space for new emotions, and let that lighter energy come in. So what does that actually look like? What is usually happening when we are putting toxic positivity on ourselves is there are two parts of our mind battling with each other. One part is feeling annoyed, let's say, and the other part is saying, don't be annoyed, you need to be more patient, just relax. And what we want to do is have this part, the part that's trying to tell this part that it's wrong, just take a seat. We can come back to them later. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this part unleash a little bit. We want to let it have a bit of a rant, have a bit of a tantrum, and this can look like screaming into a pillow. It can look like calling up a friend and asking them if they have the capacity to just listen to you rant. It can look like journaling. Maybe it's sadness that you're feeling. Maybe you need to give this part time to cry or take a hot shower or rest. What we actually want to do is let this part of the experience that you're having run its course, knowing that it's not going to take over your life. So what I've seen with my clients is that there is some fear to let this part express, because if we let this part express, it might mean something about us. It might mean I'm a sad person, or mean I'm a jealous person, or it might mean that I'm an angry person. And what I don't want to do is feel this too much, and I don't want to feel it all the time. So I'm just going to not feel it at all, even though I know it's there all the time, because the more I push it away, the more it's going to persist. But in reality, if we just stop pushing against it and give it an opportunity to express and alchemize and release, then it will actually be gone. And trust me, doing that process takes way less time than letting the thoughts consume your mind all day long. So why are we so adverse to experiencing these emotions in the first place? I'm gonna break down 3 common reasons that I have experienced myself and also see in my clients. So number 1, we've been taught not to express our emotion. Like I said before, we have a little bit of fear that if we admit that we are incredibly exhausted, that we are jealous, that we are angry, all of that emotion that's there, we feel like it might just burst through the door, completely consume us, and we don't know what it's gonna look like. We don't know what it's gonna look like if we're finally allowed to express our anger, because we've been told to suppress it for so long that it's bad, that it's dangerous, that someone might get hurt, and we're creatures that like control. So imagining letting that door that we know has a bit of pressure behind it burst open feels scary. So better to just keep it locked. The second reason we resist to feeling these feelings is that we've labeled them as bad. But there's no way that there's anything inherently bad about the emotions that we're capable of experiencing. So we are not created as beings that have bad emotions. We've labeled joy and peace and love as good, and we've labeled anger and frustration and boredom as bad, when really we couldn't experience the joy if we didn't know anger. So if you didn't know what it felt like to be mad, then when you experience joy, it would maybe just be a neutral experience, and you wouldn't realize how much better and lighter it feels in the body because you have nothing to compare it to. And we also couldn't experience peace if we didn't know frustration. And the third reason that we want to so badly not have to experience these emotions, to overrule them with positive affirmations and positive thoughts, and I shouldn't be thinking that way, is because if we do, then on some level we'd have to admit who we think we are as someone with these negative emotions. Because we all have unique stories that have decided what it means to be the type of person that has those emotions. So I have a story about what it means to be an angry person, what it means to be a jealous person, and I probably have judgments towards that type of person. So I don't want to admit that I'm capable of being that. I don't want to admit that I'm capable of feeling jealous, and I definitely don't want to admit that I'm feeling it right now. So I might have a story that a jealous person is someone who is insecure and someone who is in scarcity mentality. And if that feels like something I don't want, then I'm going to resist feeling jealous. But actually all I would be doing is resisting admitting that I'm feeling jealous when I'm actually feeling jealous all the same. So to summarize that really quickly, the 3 main reasons that we resist feeling these negative emotions is we've been taught not to express them, we've labeled them as bad in the first place, and we don't want to be the type of person who experiences that emotion or who is labeled as that emotion because of the story that we've attached to what it means to feel that emotion. But Johanna, what about the law of attraction? And if I stay in my negative thoughts, I'll attract negative things. You're right. That is how it works. But if you don't feel your negative thoughts and they stay in your body, you're definitely going to attract negative things. Instead, we want to give ourselves permission to feel what's going on. And this is what I said before. We are giving this emotion the mic. We are letting them have some airtime. We're letting them express, even if it feels immature, even if it feels bad. We just want to let them have their place. It doesn't mean you need to act on what these thoughts are. It doesn't even mean anything about you. It just means there's something in your body that wants to express. So if we're staying on the jealousy track, let's give an example. We can ask ourselves questions like, what do I honestly feel? Maybe the answer is, I feel jealous because my competitor had a really big success recently. And then I might get a bit more curious. Why do I feel jealous about that? And maybe the answer is, well, to be honest, I think that they are a shit businessman and I'm annoyed that they just did a multi-million-dollar quarter and I pretty much think it's unfair because I don't think they do good business. Okay, yeah, that's a little ranty. That's not the most graceful thing that someone could say, but it's the reality of what this part of you is experiencing. And the next question in this conversation is, what do I believe all of this means about me? Well, maybe it means that I'm a loser, that I didn't work fast enough, that I'm not getting my company in front of enough people, and I suck. Also not graceful, also not true, but it's what this part wants to express, and that's the crunchy part. What do I think that this means about me? Having to admit, that makes me feel like a loser, that makes me feel like I'm not enough. That's the shit we don't want to admit, but it's still in our mind all the same. So we want to accept it, we want to process it, we want to listen to it, and then we want to let it go. So now we feel it. And working through this deep, crunchy point is what I do with clients in coaching sessions. It's a little bit hard to facilitate on your own, but of course, you just need to get curious with yourself and ask yourself these questions. What am I actually feeling? Why do I feel that feeling? What do I think it means about me? Again, what happens if we don't do it? If we don't feel what's happening over here, what's happening under the surface, what's really happening, what we're really experiencing, then we start to build a reality on quicksand. So then there's this loose, unattended foundation that is like quicksand, and on top of it, we're saying, nope, it's okay. I don't need to feel that way. That's unreasonable. That's being dramatic. And we're working to cover that pain and cover that pain and cover that pain. But because the pain exists, then we start operating from that pain. And that's when we start to subconsciously self-sabotage ourselves. Because we're trying to use the 5% of our brain that we have conscious access to with our thoughts to trick the 95% of our brain that is actually completely running the show. And that is not going to help anyone experience less anxiety, less overwhelm, less stress, less anger, frustration, which is the whole goal of personal development and mindset work. But if toxic positivity is getting in the way, there will not be lasting change. I hope this explanation was helpful. I hope something landed for you, and I hope you feel a bit more willing to feel the emotions over here that we have labeled as negative, because when you can feel and accept that those emotions are part of reality, it will make everything else so much easier. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment box, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!